So the French government has collapsed. The National Assembly had a vote of no confidence, ousting the Prime Minister Michel Barnier. Viewers at home will probably remember him best for his role as the lead Brexit negotiator on behalf of the European Union. But he was handpicked by Macron to be Prime Minister to essentially push through these his austerity measures, a new budget. And it's all ended in tears and disaster. Tom, do you think there are some sort of general principles we can draw out of this?
I think it's another body blow, really, to the technocratic supposed centre. I mean, it's really, you can't really overplay, I think, the extent to which Macron really became a kind of totem of the European Brussels-centric establishment. Because when he did come to power in 2017, he was very much seen as almost the repudiation of populism. That, in the wake of the Brexit vote and what a blow to Brussels' moral authority that was. Here we had a centrist, technocratic leader who could triumph. I mean, you literally had The Economist portraying him as Jesus Christ, as walking on water. And yet the unspoken reality all the way through was that he's always been incredibly unpopular. He's never been able to command much support amongst the public. His ability to cling on to the presidency has always basically been predicated on the fact that the system, the presidential system, and the way in which it runs down to two candidates and the cordon sanitaire, which always meets Marine Le Pen when she is running, means that he's been able to cling on to his particular position. But him as an individual, the program, the austerity program that he wants to push through has never commanded popular support. And it really does demonstrate, I think, that complacency that you had in the wake of 2017 onwards, which was this idea that Brexit and Trump were a blip, that the old order was reasserting itself in a more energetic fashion, that the supposed centre, as they call it, could be saved if you had someone who had enough degrees and enough dynamism and was smart suited and attractive enough in the form of Macron. And yet his political career will go down one as tremendous failure, which is not only in the process of bringing himself down, but is also calling into question the entire Fifth Republic with, a system which was set up to have an empowered executive and political stability, and you've ended up with a lame duck prime minister and political instability to an enormous degree. So you can't really fail much more than he has.
Yeah.
And what he represents has failed as well, I suppose, as well.
That's absolutely true. And we can't, you couldn't possibly overstate the mess that he has left behind. This is now France is facing the worst political, constitutional and economic crisis that it has in decades, in arguably, yes, in the history of the entire Fifth Republic, in 60 years. The economy is in, an absolutely dire state. The price of French borrowing went above that of Greece recently, and we all know what how much trouble Greece has been in recent years. The level of debt has risen to the kind of point where Italy was when it was teetering on the brink of the Euro crisis. And I'm not saying that France is going to explode anytime soon, or that it's close to that point, but Macron came in and promised to create this new dynamic startup, modern competitive economy, and look where we are. We're in exactly the opposite position. And the same with politics, as you said. The point of Macron was to see off the far right, to see off Marine Le Pen. They have never been so emboldened until at this moment. And for now, there won't be elections, it doesn't seem, but there will be a lot of political paralysis. How is this? The technocrats, the rule followers, the experts have brought us to a point where France is now effectively ungovernable. Rakib, what have you made of the whole situation?
Well, I think that the Fifth Republic is bursting at the seams, to be honest, because of the some of the reasons that you've mentioned there. I think it's remarkable that this is the first time a government's collapsed in France because of a no confidence vote since 1962. And what it really shows is that you have Barnier, who's meant to be this polished, professional technocrat, but he attempted to do something which was deeply authoritarian. He knew that his budget didn't command majority support in the National Assembly, yet he decided to use these special powers to try and force through his 2025 budget, which includes attempting to reduce the deficit to the tune of 60 billion euros. And I think what it really shows is that sometimes technocrats think that they know better than everyone else, that they don't look to attempt to cultivate wide-reaching support for their agenda. And I think that's wholly undemocratic. And I think the point that you fellas have made about President Macron, he was meant to be this, incredibly polished centrist. He would ward off the hard left and hard right threat. Well, it was the hard left and the hard right which had collapsed this government. The New Popular Front and the National Rally effectively joining forces to bring down this government. And I think what it really shows as well is that the people in France, but I think in other Western economies as well, they believe that they're living under a broken economic model. And they don't want to be subjected to all be very punishing forms of austerity, which will lead to all kinds of economic and social and indeed cultural devastation in their local communities. So I think it needs to be a major wake-up call for the Parisian centrist political establishment. And I think that the hard left and the hard right, whatever people think about the New Popular Front and the National Rally within that establishment, they need to be taken more seriously and they need to be treated with a bit more respect.
And as you were just saying there, Rakib, it's not just France. This is a, Europe-wide, Western-wide phenomenon. I mean, it was only a month ago when Germany had to pull the plug on its own coalition. We're expecting elections possibly in the new year. Of course, even more famously, Donald Trump smashing the Democrats. It seems like the sort of technocratic centre is being, it's toppling wherever we look.
No, absolutely. And I think they're starting to wake up to that. I think we were talking recently about the very different tone that a lot of the postmortems of, say, Trump's recent re-election, whereas previously there was an attempt to basically just stick the proverbial fingers in the air and pretend that it's not happening, to say it could be explained away by some kind of glitch or some kind of foul play. I think it's slowly dawning on various Western technocratic leaders that their authority has been so incredibly called into question. One thing I would add, though, I suppose, is that the elephant in the room in this whole discussion is the European Union itself. Is the way in which it binds nation states and their ability to respond, the kinds of policies it effectively demands of particular countries when their economic outlook hits the skids. And that's something which quite strikingly across Europe, a lot of the right populist upstarts have really actually backed away from their Euroscepticism at precisely the time in which nations should be looking to challenge those fetters. It seems like the closer that various populist parties get to power, the more they decide they're going to need to be seen to be playing ball with the European Union, and the sense that they want to almost diffuse that as a particular issue as something that could be thrown at them. And obviously there's the kind of general political realities of the fact that if you're in the Eurozone, this is having some sort of break with Brussels is potentially much more drastic, something which is potentially really going to cause tremendous economic instability in the short term. But I think slowly but surely people have to recognise that a situation in which you are a member state rather than a nation state, a situation in which you have to get your budgets rubber stamped by faceless technocrats, is really creaking under the weight of its own contradictions and lack of democratic legitimacy. But it's striking that many of the right populist parties, certainly, but some of the left populist parties over recent years as well, who've had success, they seem to be unwilling to even think about grasping that nettle of a genuine break with Brussels.